The sickening crack of bone pierced the tranquil afternoon air, followed by a child's agonized scream that seemed to freeze time itself in the sunlit park. 10-year-old Lily Morgan crumpled to the ground, her small body convulsing with pain as she clutched her grotesquely twisted arm against her chest. The limb bent at an unnatural angle, already swelling visibly beneath the sleeve of her faded yellow sweater. Above her loomed Victor Blackwood, the imposing leader of the Iron Serpent motorcycle gang, his massive shadow engulfing her tiny frame as his cruel laughter cut through the horrified silence of onlookers. "Should have stayed out of my way, kid," Victor sneered, towering over the sobbing child. The afternoon sunlight glinted off the tarnished skull pendant hanging from his neck, casting dancing reflections across Lily's tear-streaked face. His gang members circled like vultures, their motorcycles rumbling menacingly in a choreographed display of intimidation. The machines vibrated the very ground beneath them, their exhaust fumes hanging heavy in the once pristine spring air. Leather-clad figures with cold, calculating eyes blocked every possible escape route. Mothers clutched their children close to their knuckles, white with fear. Fathers stood frozen in indecision, weighing the moral imperative to intervene against the overwhelming odds no one dared to call for help. Phones remaining tucked away in pockets and purses, as if the very act of reaching for them might provoke further violence. What Victor failed to notice was the mud-covered tactical vest on the German Shepherd rising slowly from beside Lily, nor the way its intelligent amber eyes hardened into a predatory focus. As the dog's hackles rose and its lips pulled back to reveal perfectly maintained canine teeth, the partially exposed K9 police patch became visible beneath the splattered mud. The first biker who spotted it visibly paled, his swagger evaporating instantly. "Victor!" he whispered urgently, backing away from the animal with practiced caution. "Victor, that ain't no regular dog." But the warning came too late. Atlas, fully trained military-grade K9 service dog, launched himself toward Victor's throat with terrifying precision and deadly intent. The shepherd's powerful muscles coiled and released in a perfect arc that spoke of thousands of hours of rigorous training. In that suspended moment before impact, Victor's eyes widened with the sudden, terrible understanding that he had made a catastrophic miscalculation. Lily Morgan wasn't like most 10-year-olds in the sleepy coastal town of Harborview, orphaned at 6. After a military helicopter accident claimed both her parents, Lily now lived with her grandmother, Eleanor. Eleanor Morgan was a formidable woman with silver hair cropped short in a practical style that framed a face lined with experience rather than simply age. Her kind eyes couldn't quite hide the steel behind them, the unmistakable resolve of someone who had faced life's harshest challenges and remained standing. Lily's most constant companion wasn't another child, but Atlas, a specially trained German Shepherd service dog who could detect her seizures before they happened, a condition that had developed after the trauma of losing her parents. Though small for her age, with copper-red hair often gathered in a messy braid, Lily possessed an inner strength that sometimes startled adults who expected only fragility from her slight frame. Her delicate appearance, prone to sudden medical episodes, belied the fierce determination in her sage-green eyes, eyes that had witnessed more loss than any child should bear. Atlas had entered Lily's life through Project Sentinel, a controversial program that paired former military K9s with vulnerable civilians after their service careers ended. The shepherd moved with calculated precision, his amber eyes constantly scanning for threats while maintaining the gentle demeanor needed for a child handler. His training allowed him to perform dozens of complex commands, alert to medical emergencies, and when necessary, defend his charge with military-grade protection skills that transformed the loving companion into a lethal guardian in seconds. The special vest he wore, midnight blue with reflective patches, identified his status. Though many in Harborview questioned the wisdom of giving a child access to what some called a weapon with fur, the specialized equipment contained medical information, identification, and emergency protocols, along with hidden reinforcements that protected the dog during interventions. Eleanor Morgan's weathered Victorian house sat on a bluff overlooking the harbor, its wraparound porch and gabled roof a landmark visible to ships entering the bay. The meticulously maintained garden with its geometric flower beds and carefully pruned roses reflected Eleanor's disciplined nature, a testament to order maintained against chaos. Few remembered that before she was Grandma Eleanor, she had been Commander Morgan, one of the most respected K-9 development officers in the military's Specialized Training Division. Her knowledge had shaped the very program that now provided her granddaughter with both protection and companionship. Now at 74, Eleanor's body was failing her cancer, spreading through her once strong frame as she lay in Harborview Memorial Hospital's palliative care unit. The disease had progressed rapidly in recent months, outpacing even the grim timeline her doctors had projected. The Iron Serpent motorcycle gang had rolled into Harborview 4 months earlier, bringing with them a reputation for calculated brutality, masked as vigilante justice. Led by Victor Blackwood, a mountain of a man with a beard like oxidized copper and eyes the color of winter ice. The gang operated on their own twisted moral code. Victor's massive forearms, covered in faded tattoos that hinted at military service, commanded respect from his crew, particularly from his lieutenant, the wiry and watchful Nathan Cooper. Unknown to the others, Nathan's careful observation served a different master, his badge hidden beneath layers of leather and lies as he worked undercover to bring the gang to justice. He had infiltrated the Iron Serpents 18 months ago after 3 counties had reported escalating violence connected to the gang's expansion along the coast. What none of them knew was how tightly their fates were already intertwined with the little girl and her extraordinary dog. Dawn broke over Harborview with golden fingers of light stretching across Eleanor Morgan's prized garden. Inside the kitchen of the old Victorian, Lily stood on a wooden stool, her tongue caught between her teeth in concentration as she carefully wrapped a hand-painted ceramic frame in tissue paper. The photograph inside showed 3 generations of Morgan women, her mother in desert camouflage, Eleanor in her garden apron, and tiny Lily between them, grinning with missing front teeth. "Do you think she'll like it, Atlas?" Lily whispered, glancing down at the German shepherd, who sat attentively beside her stool. His posture alert but relaxed, Atlas's tail swept once across the worn linoleum, in affirmation, the gesture almost human in its deliberate communication. The service dog hadn't left Lily's side since they'd received the call last night from Dr. Palmer. The physician's voice had been gentle but clear. Eleanor's condition had deteriorated rapidly, the cancer now affecting multiple systems. "If there are things that need to be said," he had told Mrs. Bennett, the home health nurse who now slept in the guest room, "today would be the time." Lily carefully placed the wrapped frame into her backpack alongside the handwritten card she had worked on for 3 days to get just right. Her small fingers trembled slightly as she zipped the bag closed. Atlas immediately pressed against her leg, sensing the change in her body chemistry that might precede a seizure. Lily took a deep breath, her hand finding comfort in Atlas's coarse fur where the tactical vest didn't cover. "I'm okay, boy," she murmured, employing the calming techniques Eleanor had taught her. "We've got to be strong today for Grandma." Mrs. Bennett appeared in the doorway, her face creased with concern, wisps of gray escaping her practical bun. She held a steaming mug of tea that filled the kitchen with the scent of chamomile and honey. Eleanor's remedy for difficult mornings. "The hospital called again, sweetheart," she said, her voice carrying the soft, melodic tones of the islands where she'd grown up. "Your grandmother had a restless night. Dr. Palmer thinks we should try to get there before noon. That's when they give her the medication that makes her very sleepy." Lily nodded solemnly, shoulders straightening beneath the weight of adult concerns. "We'll take the shortcut through Bayfront Park. Atlas knows the way." Miss Bennett frowned, the expression deepening the lines around her mouth. "I don't know, Lily. I could drive you when my replacement arrives at 11, but that might be too late." Lily protested, her voice breaking slightly. "Grandma needs to see her present today. She told me yesterday that today is important. Please, Mrs. Bennett, Atlas will keep me safe. He always does." The nurse hesitated, glancing at the service dog's alert posture. and impeccable training, Eleanor had been insistent about fostering Lily's independence, despite her medical condition. Your grandmother believed in building strength through careful freedom. She often said when neighbors questioned her decisions, "All right," Miss Bennet finally conceded, "but you call me the moment you reach the hospital. Promise and Atlas stays with you every second." Lily's face brightened as she nodded vigorously. "I promise Atlas never leaves me. That's why he's the best dog in the whole wide world." At the praise, Atlas maintained his professional demeanor, though his tail betrayed a single happy swish across the kitchen floor. 40 minutes later, Lily and Atlas made their way along the tree-lined path that cut through Bayfront Park. It was a perfect spring day, the kind that usually filled the green space with families and picnickers enjoying the view of the harbor. Today, however, the park seemed strangely empty, with only a few mothers pushing strollers along distant paths. A ground fog had rolled in from the water, creating pockets of mist that hung between trees and obscured the harbor view. Lily didn't mind the relative solitude. It gave her time to rehearse exactly what she wanted to tell Grandma Eleanor about the special project she'd completed at school. A genealogy assignment tracing the Morgan family's military service through 3 generations. Atlas walked perfectly positioned at Lily's left side, his posture alert but calm. Occasionally, the dog's ears would swivel toward a sound, but nothing caused him enough concern to change their steady pace. Lily found comfort in Atlas's confidence, letting her hand rest lightly on the dog's back as they walked. They were approaching the central pavilion when Atlas suddenly slowed his body, tensing beneath her fingers. Lily recognized the subtle change immediately. "What is it, boy?" she whispered, scanning the open space ahead, where the morning fog was beginning to burn away in the strengthening sunlight. The low rumble reached her ears a moment later. Motorcycles, not just one but many, their engines growling like approaching thunder. Atlas moved slightly ahead of Lily, creating a living barrier between her and the potential threat. Around the curve of the path, a procession of black and chrome machines appeared, each bearing a rider clad in leather, adorned with a distinctive serpent patch coiled around a blade. Lily froze, her heart hammering against her ribs as she recognized the insignia from news reports. The Iron Serpents. Even children in Harborview knew to avoid them after the incident at the marina last month. "It's okay," Lily whispered to herself as much as to Atlas. "We'll just wait for them to pass." But the motorcycles weren't passing. Instead, they slowed, then stopped, forming a semicircle across the path ahead. Their engines idled with threatening persistence, like the growl of predators considering their options. The largest rider, a bearded giant whose motorcycle seemed barely adequate to support his frame, dismounted first. His heavy boots crunched on the gravel as he removed his helmet, revealing a face weathered by sun and hardship, with eyes that reminded Lily of the frost on winter windows. Atlas's posture changed subtly, his body lowering into a more defensive stance. Lily noticed with alarm that Atlas's service vest, normally pristine and visible, had been splashed with mud from a puddle they'd crossed earlier. The critical patches identifying him as a service animal were partially obscured. The large man, Victor Blackwood, though, Lily didn't know his name, stared at her with an intensity that made her want to disappear. Behind him, other gang members dismounted, creating an intimidating wall of leather and denim. Only one remained slightly apart, a leaner man whose watchful eyes seemed to take in everything at once. "Ah! Well, well," Victor's voice boomed across the suddenly silent park. "Look what we have here, boy's Catherine Westfield's kid." Lily blinked in confusion. "I'm Lily Morgan," she corrected politely, her grandmother's lessons in manners overriding her fear momentarily. "My mom's name was Rebecca." Victor's expression darkened, the lines around his mouth deepening into furrows. "Don't play games, girl. I know exactly who you are." He pulled a folded photograph from his jacket pocket, glancing at it before fixing his gaze on Lily again. "You're the spitting image of your mother, and that means your father is James Westfield, the man who got my brother killed." The lean man, Nathan Cooper, stepped forward cautiously. "Victor, hold up. That doesn't look like the Westfield kid. She'd be older." "Shut it, Nathan." Victor snapped, his focus unwavering. I've been looking for this family for 3 years. The informant said the grandmother lives here in Harbor View, and here's the proof standing right in front of us. Lily's confusion deepened into fear, a cold sensation spreading from her chest to her limbs. My grandmother is Eleanor Morgan. She's in the hospital. I'm going to visit her right now, and I really need to hurry. Her voice trembled, despite her best efforts to sound brave. Please let us pass. Not happening, Victor growled, taking a step closer. Atlas responded with a low warning rumble deep in his chest, causing Victor to pause. He eyed the dog with annoyance rather than concern, not recognizing the controlled aggression of a highly trained K9. What's with the mutt? One of the other bikers called out, noticing Atlas's protective stance. Victor glanced at Atlas dismissively. Just some pet, probably a rescue the grandmother got to make the kid feel safe. He laughed coldly. Not so safe now, are you? Lily's hand tightened in Atlas's fur. The dog remained steady, though Lily could feel the coiled tension in his body. Atlas was assessing, waiting for clear danger before responding. His training was impeccable. Escalate only when necessary. Protect the charge at all costs. Nathan moved slightly, positioning himself where he could intervene if needed, while appearing to move toward Victor. His cover as Victor's lieutenant had given him insight into the man's volatile temper, but this confrontation with a child had caught him off guard. The intelligence he'd gathered had mentioned nothing about Victor targeting a little girl. Your daddy left my brother to die. Victor continued, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. Left him bleeding out in a warehouse while he escaped with the evidence your family's been hiding ever since. But I found you, and now you're going to tell me where James Westfield is. Lily shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. My dad was Captain Michael Morgan. He and my mom died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan 4 years ago. I don't know any James Westfield. Please, my grandma is really sick. I need to see her today. The sincerity in her voice gave Nathan the opening he needed. Victor, man, I think we got bad intel. This kid's too young, and look at her backpack. He pointed to the Harbor View Elementary logo embroidered on the front. The Westfields wouldn't be so obvious. Victor hesitated, doubt flickering across his face momentarily, but then his expression hardened again. She's lying. The Westfields would say anything to protect themselves. He took another step forward, looming over Lily. Your grandmother's in the hospital, huh? Which one? Maybe we should all go visit her, have a nice family reunion. Lily stepped back instinctively, her heel catching on an exposed tree root. She stumbled, causing Atlas to shift position to support her. The movement dislodged more of the dried mud on Atlas's vest, revealing a small corner of the official K9 patch. Victor's eyes narrowed as he caught the glimpse of the patch, but he misinterpreted it as some kind of ordinary dog club insignia. His patience had run out. With startling speed for such a large man, he reached out and grabbed Lily's arm, yanking her toward him. You're coming with us to find your grandmother. Then you'll both tell me where James Westfield is hiding. His grip tightened painfully around Lily's small arm. Atlas's warning growl deepened, but Victor paid no attention, focused entirely on the terrified child. Please, Lily whimpered, trying to pull away. You're hurting me. Victor, ease up. Nathan cautioned, stepping closer. She's just a kid. Stay out of this, Victor barked, twisting Lily's arm to emphasize his point. The sickening crack that followed seemed to echo across the entire park. Lily's scream pierced the air as her arm bent at an unnatural angle. She collapsed to her knees, cradling the broken limb against her chest, her face white with shock and pain. The moment of violence triggered an immediate transformation in Atlas. The service dog's gentle demeanor vanished, replaced by the precision-trained military K9 that formed the foundation of his training. As Lily fell to the ground, crying in agony, a patch of mud fell away from Atlas's vest, revealing the full police K9 identifier that should have warned Victor Blackwood of his grave mistake. Too late, Victor realized what he was facing. His eyes widened at the sight of the official marking. But before he could react, 80 pounds of highly trained K9 protector launched toward him with terrifying purpose. Atlas's attack was precision itself. Like a missile wrapped in fur, He struck Victor's forearm first, not his throat, a calculated choice that demonstrated his advanced training. K-9s like Atlas were taught to immobilize, not kill, using carefully calibrated force appropriate to the threat level. His powerful jaws clamped down with over 200 pounds of pressure, eliciting a scream from Victor that matched Lily's in volume, but not in pitch. Blood blossomed across his leather jacket as Atlas maintained his grip, his body twisting with practiced efficiency to unbalance the much larger human. The shepherd's weight and momentum sent Victor staggering backward, nearly toppling him, despite the significant size difference. "Get this fucking dog off me!" Victor bellowed, his free hand fumbling for the hunting knife strapped to his belt. Before he could reach it, Atlas released his arm only to immediately lunge for his wrist, catching it in another calculated bite that sent the knife clattering to the pavement. The dog moved with a fluid precision that spoke of thousands of hours of training, each motion economical and devastatingly effective. The other bikers stood frozen in shock, having expected many things from their day, but not a confrontation with what was clearly a professionally trained police dog. All except Nathan, who used the moment of confusion to slide closer to Lily, positioning himself between her and the rest of the gang while appearing to move toward Victor. His leather gloves concealed the tension in his hands as he prepared to reveal his true identity if the situation deteriorated further. "It's a goddamn police dog," shouted one of the bikers, backing toward his motorcycle. "Look at the vest. It's a K-9 unit." Victor struggled to free himself from Atlas's grip, but the dog had been trained to control suspects twice his weight. Each time he pulled away, Atlas adjusted his position, using his momentum against him, while never fully releasing his hold. Blood dripped onto the park pathway as Victor stumbled, trying to maintain his balance against the calculated assault. Lily curled into herself on the ground, her broken arm held protectively against her chest, tears streaming down her face. The pain was unlike anything she'd ever experienced. White-hot pulses shooting from her fingertips to her shoulder. Through her tears, she watched Atlas defend her with a mixture of terror and awe. She'd never seen this side of her companion, had been told about Atlas's protective capabilities, but never witnessed them deployed with such controlled violence. "Atlas," she gasped between sobs. "Atlas, please don't kill him." Whether responding to the command or simply following his training, Atlas adjusted his approach. He released Victor's wrist and backed up, placing himself squarely between Lily and her attacker. His stance was unmistakable, a clear warning that any movement toward the child would trigger another attack. Blood stained his muzzle, but his focus never wavered, eyes locked on Victor as he clutched his mangled arm. The shepherd's hackles remained raised, his muscles visibly tense beneath his mud-spattered vest. "Jesus Christ." Victor panted, his face pale beneath his beard, as he stared at the dog with newfound respect and fear. What the hell kind of kid has a police attack dog? Nathan seized the moment to establish himself as a voice of reason, while secretly advancing his undercover position. "We need to get out of here, Victor," he urged, maintaining his cover while trying to de-escalate. "That's no ordinary service dog, that's military-grade training. There'll be handlers looking for it if it doesn't report in." The other bikers were already retreating to their motorcycles. Their earlier bravado evaporated in the face of Atlas's demonstration. A few park-goers who had witnessed the confrontation from a distance had pulled out cell phones, the distant sounds of sirens suggesting that help was already on the way. Victor's eyes darted from Atlas to Lily to the growing audience of witnesses. The cold calculation in his gaze showed he was reassessing the situation, weighing his dwindling options. With a snarl of frustration, he backed toward his motorcycle, never turning his back on Atlas. "This isn't over," he growled, pointing a bloody finger at Lily. "I'll find your grandmother. I'll get the truth." Atlas responded with a warning bark that made even the remaining bikers flinch. The message was clear: leave now or face worse consequences. Victor's expression contorted with rage and humiliation as he swung onto his motorcycle, nursing his injured arm. The powerful engine roared to life, drowning out Lily's whimpers momentarily. "Let's move," Victor ordered, and the gang complied. Without hesitation, engines thundering as they peeled away from the park entrance, leaving behind only oil stains on the pavement and the lingering scent of exhaust. As the last motorcycle disappeared around the corner, Atlas immediately transformed again, his posture softening as he turned to Lily with gentle movements that belied his recent aggression. He nuzzled Lily's tear-stained face, offering comfort while still remaining vigilant. The transition was remarkable from weapon to therapy. Dog in an instant, his training allowing him to modulate perfectly between roles. Nathan remained behind, maintaining his cover by pretending to search for something dropped during the confrontation. He surreptitiously approached Lily, keeping his body language unthreatening. "Hey, kid," he said quietly, crouching down nearby, but not too close. "That arm needs a hospital. Want me to call an ambulance?" Lily shrank back, Atlas positioning himself between them with a low warning rumble. "No!" Lily managed through her pain. "Atlas can protect me. I need to get to the hospital anyway. My grandma's there." Nathan nodded slowly, understanding her fear of strangers after what had just happened. "That dog of yours is something else. Never seen Victor taken down like that." He pulled a clean bandana from his pocket and offered it from a safe distance. "Here might help stabilize that arm till you get help." Lily hesitated, then allowed him to place the bandana on the ground near her. Atlas sniffed it thoroughly before permitting Lily to reach for it with her good hand. "Thank you," Lily whispered, the manners ingrained by her grandmother surfacing even through her pain. Nathan stood glancing in the direction his gang had disappeared. "They'll regroup a few blocks away. You should get moving before they come back with a plan." He paused, seeming to wrestle with something. "Victor's got the wrong kid, doesn't he? You're not Catherine Westfield's daughter." Lily shook her head, wincing as the movement jostled her injured arm. "I'm Lily Morgan. My grandma is Eleanor Morgan. She's dying in Harborview Hospital." A flash of recognition crossed Nathan's face at the name. She trained dogs for the Navy. Lily confirmed, her young face pinched with pain and confusion. "How did you know?" Nathan's expression shifted, something like respect mingling with concern. "Let's just say your grandma's reputation gets around." He stepped back, making a show of mounting his motorcycle for anyone who might be watching. "Head straight to the hospital. Don't stop for anyone. I'll try to keep Victor distracted, but he's not going to let this go easy." Before Lily could respond, Nathan revved his engine and sped off, ostensibly to rejoin his gang, but with every intention of contacting his police handler at the first opportunity. The situation had escalated far beyond what his undercover operation had anticipated. Left alone in the suddenly quiet park, Lily struggled to her feet, whimpering as her movement sent fresh waves of pain through her broken arm. Atlas pressed against her side, offering both physical support and comfort. The service dog nudged her gently in the direction of the hospital, understanding their mission had now taken on even greater urgency. "Good boy," Lily whispered, drawing strength from Atlas's unwavering presence. "We need to get to Grandma. She'll know what to do." The dog nudged her hand gently in response, as if agreeing with the sentiment. Together, the injured child and her extraordinary protector pressed onward, unaware that their ordeal was only beginning, that the hospital they sought as sanctuary would soon become the setting for confrontations even more dangerous than what they had just escaped. Behind them, a few drops of blood from Victor's wounds marked their trail, a crimson path leading from past to future, connecting lives in ways none of them yet understood. The automatic doors of Harborview Memorial Hospital's emergency entrance slid open with a pneumatic hiss as Lily stumbled through Atlas steadfastly at her side. The bright fluorescent lights of the sterile environment momentarily blinded her after the dimness of the approaching storm outside. Pain radiated from her broken arm in nauseating waves, causing black spots to dance at the edges of her vision. For a moment, she stood swaying in the entrance, her small figure drawing no immediate attention. In the busy emergency room, nurses hurried past with clipboards, orderlies wheeled equipment between curtained areas, and the reception desk was occupied with an elderly man describing symptoms with elaborate hand gestures. "Help!" Lily tried to call out, but her voice emerged as barely a whisper, lost in the ambient noise of medical urgency. Atlas, sensing his charge's fading strength, let out a single authoritative bark that cut through the chaos like a knife. Heads turned and a nurse at the reception desk looked up sharply, taking in the blood-stained service dog and the pale injured child. "We need assistance here," the nurse called out, rushing around the desk toward Lily. "Child with a traumatic injury, possible fracture." Her voice carried the efficient urgency of someone accustomed to emergencies. "Get a pediatric resident down here, Stat." Lily's knees buckled just as the nurse reached her, her strength finally giving out now that she had reached relative safety. The last thing she saw before losing consciousness was Atlas standing protectively over her, refusing to let even the medical staff approach without careful assessment. When Lily regained consciousness, she was lying on a treatment bed, a doctor gently manipulating her injured arm, while a nurse prepared a casting kit nearby. The sharp pain had dulled to a throbbing ache, suggesting she'd been given pain medication. Atlas lay precisely positioned beneath the bed, invisible to casual observation, but perfectly placed to monitor everyone who entered the room. "There she is," the doctor said kindly, noticing Lily's fluttering eyelids. "You've got quite a nasty break, young lady. I'm Dr. Palmer. Can you tell me your name?" "Lily Morgan," she whispered then with sudden alarm. "Atlas? Where's Atlas?" "Your extraordinary dog is right under the bed," Dr. Palmer assured her, gesturing downward. "We couldn't separate you two if we tried. The nurses tell me he growled at anyone who suggested taking him to the waiting area. Fortunately, our head nurse recognized a legitimate service animal when she saw one." Relief flooded Lily's face. "He's supposed to stay with me always. My grandma taught him that." The doctor's expression shifted subtly at the mention of Eleanor, a shadow passing briefly across his features. "Your grandmother is Eleanor Morgan in our palliative care unit." Lily nodded, wincing as the movement shifted her position. "I need to see her today. The doctor called and said she might not." Her voice broke, unable to complete the terrible thought that had driven her through the park, despite the dangers. Dr. Palmer exchanged a glance with the nurse before responding, the look communicating volumes of professional concern. "Let's get this arm set first. Then we'll see about visiting your grandmother." His tone held the careful neutrality of someone accustomed to delivering difficult news. "Can you tell me how this happened? This kind of spiral fracture doesn't typically result from a fall." "A man grabbed my arm," Lily explained, her voice small but steady. "He thought I was someone else. He twisted it until it broke. Atlas protected me." She glanced down at her loyal companion, gratitude mingling with the residual fear in her eyes. The nurse paused in her preparation of the casting materials, her eyes widening slightly. Dr. Palmer's face hardened as he gently examined the bruising pattern on Lily's arm, confirming her account of deliberate injury. "I see," he said carefully. "And where is this man now?" "Atlas bit him," Lily answered simply. "He ran away with his motorcycle friends, but he said he'd find my grandma. He thinks she knows something." Dr. Palmer's expression darkened further, the professional mask slipping momentarily to reveal genuine concern. "Nurse Patel, please call security and have them post someone at Ms. Morgan's door in palliative care. Then contact the police." He turned back to Lily, his manner gentle but serious. "We're going to take good care of you, Lily, and we'll make sure your grandmother is safe too." As Dr. Palmer finished setting her arm and the nurse began applying the cast, Lily found her thoughts drifting to the gift in her backpack still undelivered. "My backpack," she murmured. "I brought Grandma a present." "Mirananam. It's right here, honey," Nurse Patel assured her, retrieving the small purple backpack from a cabinet. "Nothing's been taken out." Lily relaxed slightly, though anxiety still churned in her stomach. The importance of delivering her gift to Eleanor before it was too late felt overwhelming. As if sensing her distress, Atlas emerged from under the bed and placed his head gently on the edge of the mattress. Amber eyes fixed on Lily with unwavering devotion. "Good boy," Lily whispered, using her good hand to stroke Atlas's head. "We'll see Grandma soon." The dog's ears twitched forward at the mention of Eleanor as if he understood perfectly the urgency of their mission. By the time Lily's cast had dried a bright blue shell encasing her arm from knuckles to above the elbow, she had recounted her story several times. First to Dr. Palmer, then to a hospital social worker with kind eyes and a voice that seemed calibrated to soothe distressed children, and finally to a uniformed police officer who took detailed notes and spoke into his radio about lookouts for the Iron Serpent gang. Lily needs rest. Dr. Palmer eventually intervened, ushering the others from the treatment room. And she's made it very clear she wants to see her grandmother. I'll take her up myself. The social worker hesitated, adjusting her glasses with a nervous gesture. Her legal guardian is currently incapacitated. Shouldn't we wait for the home nurse to arrive? Eleanor Morgan's family, Dr. Palmer replied firmly. And in my medical opinion, this visit can't wait for either of their sakes. The authority in his voice brooked no further argument, causing the social worker to step back with a nod of reluctant acquiescence. The elevator ride to the palliative care floor was silent, except for the soft panting of Atlas, who remained pressed against Lily's legs. Dr. Palmer kept glancing down at the dog with a mixture of curiosity and respect. Your grandmother spoke about Atlas often during her treatments. He finally said as the elevator ascended. She was very proud of the program she helped develop, said you two were her greatest success story. Lily looked up in surprise. You know about Atlas's training? Dr. Palmer smiled gently. Your grandmother and I had many long conversations during her chemotherapy sessions. Eleanor Morgan isn't one to complain about her own discomfort, so she'd tell me about her work instead. His expression grew thoughtful lines deepening around his eyes. She mentioned once that there was someone she hoped would come back into her life for the end. I wonder if that's connected to what happened to you today. The elevator doors opened before Lily could respond, revealing the hushed environment of the palliative care unit. Unlike the bustling emergency department, this floor moved at a quieter pace designed to provide peace and dignity to patients in their final days. The lighting was softer, the colors warmer, even the air seemed different, free from the antiseptic sharpness of the floors below. A security guard nodded respectfully to Dr. Palmer as they passed the nurse's station. Your grandmother's room is just down here. Dr. Palmer guided her gently, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. She's been asking for you all day. The nurses said she refused her pain medication this morning, wanting to stay alert until you arrive. Lily clutched her backpack strap with her good hand. Suddenly nervous, Atlas pressed closer, offering silent support as they approached the door marked Morgan E. I should warn you, Dr. Palmer said softly, pausing outside the door. Your grandmother has changed since you last saw her. The cancer has progressed significantly. She's much weaker now and thinner, but she's still Eleanor. Still the same person inside. Lily nodded solemnly. Grandma told me that's how it works. Bodies get sick, but people stay themselves until they go to heaven. Dr. Palmer's eyes softened at her simple wisdom. That's exactly right, ready to go in. When Lily stepped into the room, her first impression was of how much smaller her grandmother looked in the hospital bed. Dwarfed by the white sheets and medical equipment, Eleanor Morgan, once a commanding presence who could bring military personnel to attention, with a glance now appeared fragile, her once robust frame whittled down to essential bones. But her eyes, those keen blue eyes that had always seen straight through pretense, lit up with recognition and love when Lily entered. There's my brave girl. Eleanor whispered, her voice thin but warm. Right on time as always. Lily rushed to the bedside, tears spilling freely now. Grandma, I brought you something. She awkwardly maneuvered her backpack with one hand struggling to unzip it. Eleanor's gaze sharpened as she noticed the cast. What happened to your arm, sweetheart? Before Lily could answer, Atlas approached the bed, placing his front paws carefully on the edge to bring himself to Eleanor's eye level. The old woman's weathered hand reached out to stroke the dog's head, a gesture as familiar as breathing between them. Atlas's vest has blood on it. Eleanor observed military precision evident in her assessment, despite her weakened state, and it's not Lily's blood report. To Dr. Palmer's amazement, the dog responded with a series of soft vocalizations that seemed almost like communication. Eleanor listened intently, her expression growing grave. "I see," she finally said, turning her attention back to Lily. "You were attacked. Atlas defended you." It wasn't a question, but a statement of understood facts. Lily nodded, lower lip trembling. "A man on a motorcycle. He thought I was someone else. He said his name was Victor, and he was looking for people named Westfield. He said they did something bad to his brother." The change in Eleanor's expression was subtle but unmistakable. A tightening around the eyes, a sudden stillness that spoke volumes. Dr. Palmer, watching from near the door, observed the transformation with professional interest, noting how the dying woman suddenly seemed more present, more focused. "Victor Blackwood," Eleanor said quietly, her gaze drifting to a collection of photographs on her bedside table. "I wondered if he'd find us eventually." Lily followed her grandmother's gaze to the photographs, many of which she'd seen throughout her life. Her parents in uniform, her grandparents at military functions, her own school pictures. But there was one photo partially obscured behind the others that caught her attention now. She carefully picked it up, studying the unfamiliar image. Photographs showed a much younger Eleanor in military fatigues, standing proudly between two young soldiers. One was instantly recognizable as Lily's father, Michael Morgan, but the other, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a beard and familiar frost blue eyes, was a stranger to Lily, yet somehow not entirely unfamiliar. Something in the set of his jaw, the way he stood at parade rest, even in a casual photograph, triggered a sense of recognition. "Grandma," Lily whispered, confusion evident in her voice. "Who is this man with you and Dad?" Eleanor sighed deeply, the sound rattling slightly in her chest. "That's Victor Blackwood before everything went wrong, when he was still the brother your father chose for himself." Her tired eyes met Dr. Palmer's. "Doctor, would you mind giving us a few minutes alone? We have some family history to discuss." Dr. Palmer nodded understandingly. "Of course, I'll be right outside if you need anything." He stepped out quietly, closing the door behind him. Eleanor patted the edge of her bed, inviting Lily to sit closer. Atlas remained vigilant at the bedside, his posture suggesting he sensed the importance of this conversation. "Lily, there are things I should have told you sooner." Eleanor began, her voice gaining strength from necessity. "About your father, about Victor, and about why Atlas was assigned to you specifically." She took Lily's good hand in her own frail one. "The Westfield family that Victor mentioned, they're connected to our past in ways that are complicated and painful. I thought we'd left that all behind, but it seems some stories refuse to end until they've been properly told." Outside the hospital room, Dr. Palmer made notes in Lily's chart, adding details about her injury and emotional state. As he wrote, a nurse approached with a concerned expression, her steps quickened by urgency. "Doctor's security just called up," she said in a hushed tone. "There's a man in the lobby asking about Eleanor Morgan, a big man with a bandaged arm and a motorcycle jacket. Security's stalling him, but he's becoming insistent." Dr. Palmer's pen paused mid-sentence. "Alert the police immediately and make sure that room remains secure. No visitors except verified medical staff." His gaze lingered on the closed door behind which an old woman raced against time to share secrets long buried, while outside those same secrets sought violent resolution. In Eleanor's room, surrounded by the quiet beeps of monitoring equipment, grandmother and granddaughter huddled together as the past unfolded between them. Each revelation changing Lily's understanding of herself and the legacy she carried. Atlas stood, guard ears pricked toward the door, sensing the approach of dangers, both immediate and inherited dangers that would soon converge in the sterile hallways of Harborview Hospital. An urgent knocking interrupted Eleanor's revelations, the sound sharp and authoritative against the hospital room door. Lily startled, clutching her grandmother's hand tighter, while Atlas immediately positioned himself between the door and the bed hackles rising. Dr. Palmer entered quickly, his normally calm demeanor replaced by controlled urgency. "We need to move you both immediately," he announced, already disconnecting Eleanor's non-essential monitoring equipment with practiced efficiency. "Victor Blackwood is in the building with at least 3 other gang members. Security has slowed them down, but they've made threats and hospital policy requires us to relocate vulnerable patients. Eleanor's expression remained composed despite the alarming news. How much time do we have, Doctor? Minutes at best. They're working their way up from the ground floor. Dr. Palmer gestured to a nurse who had appeared with a wheelchair. We're moving you to the secure wing in oncology. It has restricted access and dedicated security. Eleanor shook her head firmly. That won't work. Victor was Special Forces before his discharge. Hospital security won't stop him once he decides finesse has failed. Her eyes found Lily's, communicating silent determination. We need another option. Lily clutched her backpack to her chest, the gift for her grandmother still undelivered. Atlas can protect us. She offered, her young voice steady despite her fear. He stopped Victor before Dr. Palmer's gaze shifted to the service dog, noting the intelligent focus in the animal's stance. Your dog is extraordinary, Lily, but we're talking about multiple armed men in a hospital full of vulnerable patients. We need to follow protocol. The sudden click of the room's window latch made them all turn. Nathan Cooper, still in his leather jacket emblazoned with the Iron Serpent insignia, was sliding the window open from the narrow ledge outside. Atlas growled, advancing toward this new threat, but Eleanor's sharp command stopped him. Hold, Atlas. Eleanor ordered, her voice momentarily regaining its former military authority. He's not the enemy. Nathan swung his leg over the windowsill, entering with the controlled movements of someone accustomed to covert operations. Victor's got the entire main entrance covered. He reported, speaking directly to Eleanor as if they were familiar. 4 men, possibly armed. He's unhinged. That dog did a number on his arm and he refused medical treatment. He's running on rage and painkillers. Dr. Palmer moved protectively toward Lily. Who are you? How did you get up to a 4th-floor window? He's a police officer. Eleanor answered before Nathan could speak. Undercover in Victor's gang, and he's also my former student. She addressed Nathan directly. How long have you been embedded with the Iron Serpents? Detective Cooper. 18 months. Nathan replied, removing his leather glove to reveal a faded scar across his palm that matched one visible on Eleanor's right hand. Long enough to know Victor's obsession with finding the Westfields has completely consumed him. But I never expected him to track you down or mistake Lily for Catherine Westfield's daughter. Lily's eyes widened at this exchange, pieces of her grandmother's interrupted story beginning to connect. You know him, Grandma. Like you knew the man in the photo? The one who hurt me? Eleanor's gaze softened as she looked at her granddaughter. Nathan was one of my last trainees before I retired from the K-9 program. He came to visit me last month when he discovered I was ill. She turned back to Nathan. Does Victor know about your true identity? Nathan shook his head. My cover's intact, but it won't matter if he finds us here. Victor's beyond reason now. Seeing Atlas's police training pushed him over the edge, confirmed every paranoid theory he's harbored about government conspiracy surrounding the Westfield case. Dr. Palmer, who had been monitoring the hallway through the door's small window, turned back to the room. Security's engaged with someone at the elevators. We're out of time for discussion. We need to move now. The service corridors. Nathan suggested, already moving toward the door. This floor connects to the administrative wing through the staff break room. Less monitoring, fewer civilians. Eleanor nodded in agreement, her frail hand gripping Lily's good one with surprising strength. Lily, listen carefully. Atlas will... She paused, a spasm of pain crossing her features. Obey Nathan's commands if necessary. I train them both. Her eyes, though clouded with pain, burned with intensity. No matter what happens, stay with Atlas and Nathan. Promise me. But Grandma, you're coming too! Lily protested, tears threatening again. The old woman's smile was gentle but determined. Of course, sweetheart, but these old bones move slowly, and I want to be sure you understand what's important. Dr. Palmer helped Eleanor into the wheelchair, while Nathan checked the hallway. Clear for now, he reported, but I hear commotion from the main nurses' station. Victor's men are creating a distraction. Atlas padded to the door, his posture alert, but controlled, waiting for commands. Lily clutched her backpack tighter, unwilling to leave her grandmother's gift behind, despite the danger. With Nathan leading and Dr. Palmer pushing Eleanor's wheelchair, their small procession slipped into the hallway, moving quickly toward the service entrance at the far end. They had almost reached the swinging doors when an elevator at the opposite end of the corridor dinged softly. All froze as the door slid open to reveal Victor Blackwood, his massive frame filling the elevator doorway, his injured arm bandaged but clearly causing him pain. His eyes coldly calculating scanned the hallway until they locked onto their small group. Eleanor Morgan. He called out, his voice carrying the dangerous calm of a predator that has finally cornered its prey. It's been a long time, 20 years, 25. Not long enough to forget what your protege did to my family. Eleanor straightened in her wheelchair, dignity evident in every line of her frail body. Victor, I heard you were asking about me. Still blaming others for Daniel's choices, I see. Victor's expression darkened at the mention of the name. My brother made no choices. He was set up by your golden boy and the Westfield woman. His gaze shifted to Lily, standing protectively near her grandmother. And now you're harboring their offspring, training attack dogs to protect your secrets. Atlas growled low in his throat. Sensing the escalating tension, Nathan had positioned himself slightly to the side, one hand beneath his jacket where Lily suspected a weapon was hidden. Dr. Palmer remained behind Eleanor's wheelchair, his face pale but determined. The service door, Eleanor said quietly to Nathan, her eyes never leaving Victor. Get Lily out now. No one's going anywhere. Victor countered, pulling a hunting knife from his belt, its blade catching the fluorescent lights. Not until I get answers about where James Westfield is hiding. 25 years I've been hunting him, and now I find you training dogs to protect his bloodline. Lily, confused and frightened, but drawing courage from Atlas's steady presence, stepped forward slightly. I'm not a Westfield, I'm Lily Morgan. My dad was Michael Morgan. He died with my mom in Afghanistan. It's Timrina. Victor's bitter laugh held no humor. Your grandmother's taught you your lines well, kid, but I saw the family resemblance the moment I laid eyes on you. You have Catherine's face, the woman who helped James Westfield murder my brother and disappear with millions in stolen intelligence. Eleanor's voice cut through his ranting with surprising strength. Victor, look at her. Really look, she's 10 years old. The timeline doesn't work. Catherine Westfield's daughter would be 20 by now. A flicker of doubt crossed Victor's face, quickly replaced by renewed certainty. Then she's Westfield's granddaughter. Either way, she's my ticket to finding him. He took a step forward, knife still extended. I've sacrificed everything to find James Westfield. My career, my future, my family, everything. Nathan moved slightly, drawing Victor's attention. Think about this, Victor. Hospitals crawling with cops. Now you heard the alarms, badges everywhere. There's no walking away from this. There was never any walking away, Victor replied, his voice hollow. Not since the day they found Daniel with a bullet in his head and James Westfield's prints on the gun. His gaze returned to Eleanor. Your golden boy framed my brother to cover his own crimes, then disappeared with his pregnant girlfriend and the classified intel they stole. Lily's eyes widened at this accusation, her gaze darting to her grandmother's face for denial. Instead, she saw only sadness and resignation in Eleanor's expression. Victor, Eleanor said softly, you've been chasing ghosts for 25 years. James Westfield is gone. Catherine is gone. Whatever truth you're seeking died with them. She gestured weakly toward an approaching sound of footsteps. And now you've brought your vendetta to a children's floor in a public hospital. This isn't who you were. Victor's grip on the knife tightened as he glanced behind him, aware that his time was running short. Where is Westfield hiding? Tell me that and I'll disappear. Nobody gets hurt. He's not hiding anywhere. Eleanor replied, fatigue evident in her voice. He's in Arlington National Cemetery, Section 60, Plot 8219, has been for 12 years. The revelation landed like a physical blow, causing Victor to falter. You're lying. Check the records. Eleanor challenged. Your obsession has blinded you to the truth. Victor James Westfield never murdered your brother. He never stole classified intelligence. He was undercover investigating the same corruption Daniel had stumbled upon. Akari Yusufyan. Her voice softened. Daniel discovered evidence implicating high-level officials in selling military secrets. He contacted James for help. Both of them were targets after that. Victor stood frozen, the knife now hanging loosely at his side as Eleanor continued. James and Catherine went into witness protection after the attempt on their lives, the same attempt that killed your brother. They didn't frame Daniel. They were trying to protect him. And they spent the rest of their lives looking over their shoulders until cancer took James and a car accident took Catherine 4 years later. The sound of approaching security was growing louder, but Victor seemed not to hear it, his entire being focused on Eleanor's words. "No," he whispered. "No, that's not." The evidence all pointed to Westfield. My superiors confirmed it. "Your superiors were the ones selling secrets," Eleanor replied gently. "They used you, Victor, used your grief and rage to hunt the only witnesses who could have exposed them." She gestured toward Lily. "This child has nothing to do with any of it. She's my son's daughter. Michael never even met James Westfield." Victor's gaze drifted to Lily, then to Atlas, then back to Eleanor. Conflicting emotions warred across his face. Doubt, anger, disbelief, and underneath it all, the first stirrings of terrible realization. "If what you're saying is true, then I've spent half my life hunting innocent people, becoming the very monster I thought I was pursuing." The sound of running footsteps grew louder as hospital security and police approached from both ends of the corridor. Victor's gang members were nowhere to be seen, having apparently abandoned their leader when the situation escalated beyond a simple intimidation. "It's over, Victor," Eleanor said quietly. "It's been over for a long time." But Victor wasn't listening anymore. His eyes had fixed on a framed photograph visible in the partially open backpack. Lily clutched the same photograph from Eleanor's nightstand, showing a younger Eleanor with Michael Morgan and Victor Blackwood in military fatigues, arms around each other's shoulders. "Michael," Victor whispered, recognition finally dawning. "Your son was Michael Morgan, my squad mate from Special Forces." His gaze lifted to Lily's face, seeing it now with new clarity. "This is little Mike's girl, the one he used to show us pictures of." Eleanor nodded, tears forming in her tired eyes. "My son spoke of you often. Victor called you the brother he never had. He would have reached out after his deployment, but by then you'd already disappeared into your obsession." The security team rounded the corner, weapons drawn, shouting for Victor to drop his knife and get on the ground. Time seemed to slow as multiple realizations crashed through Victor's consciousness. 25 years of certainty crumbling in an instant. The knife slipped from his fingers, clattering to the floor as his knees buckled. "What have I done?" he whispered, his voice breaking. "My God, what have I become?" As security personnel swarmed forward to apprehend him, Victor made no resistance. His eyes fixed on Lily with a mixture of horror and dawning recognition. "You have his eyes," he murmured. "Michael's eyes. How could I not have seen it?" Eleanor reached out a frail hand toward Victor as he was handcuffed, their fingertips nearly touching across the gulf of years and misunderstanding. "Some truths are too painful to see clearly, Victor, even when they are right in front of us." Atlas pressed protectively against Lily's side as the child watched, confused and frightened by the complex emotions playing out before her. The dog's steady presence anchored her amid the chaos of revelations. Too adult for her full comprehension. All she understood with certainty was that the angry man who had hurt her now looked broken himself, and that her grandmother, despite her illness, was somehow at the center of this long-buried storm. The sudden blare of alarm shattered the tense standoff. Emergency lights began pulsing along the corridor ceiling, casting alternating shadows and harsh illumination across the gathered faces. A hospital-wide announcement echoed through the speakers. "Code Silver, 4th floor. All personnel implement lockdown procedures immediately. This is not a drill." Dr. Palmer's face drained of color. Code Silver active assailant, he explained tersely. Security reported only 4 gang members, but there must be more. His gaze shifted to Victor, now handcuffed and kneeling on the floor under guard. How many men did you bring into my hospital? Before Victor could answer, the double doors at the far end of the corridor burst open. 3 leather-clad figures stormed through their faces, masks of rage and desperation. Unlike Victor's calculated approach, these men moved with the reckless energy of cornered animals, brandishing makeshift weapons, a broken IV stand, a fire extinguisher, even a surgical tray, with scattered instruments gleaming dangerously. "Ari, boss, we're getting you out," shouted the largest of the 3. A heavy-set man with a shaved head and tattooed neck. His eyes registered confusion at the sight of Victor in handcuffs, not resisting. "What the hell are you doing? Get up!" The security personnel who had detained Victor swung around, drawing their weapons and shouting commands that were ignored in the chaos. Nathan stepped forward, positioning himself between the oncoming gang members and the vulnerable group behind him. His hand moved beneath his jacket, emerging with a police-issued sidearm and badge. "Please drop your weapons and stand down." Nathan's voice carried the unmistakable authority of law enforcement, momentarily freezing the advancing men. "Your leader is in custody, the building is surrounded, and you're about to make a very bad situation worse." The revelation of Nathan's true identity visibly stunned the gang members. Their momentary hesitation gave Dr. Palmer the opportunity to maneuver Eleanor's wheelchair toward the service entrance, motioning urgently for Lily to follow. Atlas remained rigidly at attention, his body angled to protect both Lily and the retreat path. "You're a cop." The disbelief in the tattooed man's voice quickly morphed into fury. "A fucking cop?" His gaze swept from Nathan to Victor, interpreting his leader's subdued posture as betrayal. "You sold us out, Victor, after everything." Victor looked up slowly, the weight of decades of misguided vengeance evident in his face. "Stand down, Marco. It's over, all of it." His voice carried the hollow resignation of a man awakening from a long destructive dream. I was wrong about everything, but Marco wasn't listening. His eyes had locked onto Lily, standing frightened beside her grandmother's wheelchair. "That's the kid with the attack dog," he growled, fury rising. "The one that nearly took your arm off, Victor. I don't care what deal you made. I ain't leaving till that little bitch pays for what her mutt did." The crude threat toward a child broke through Victor's resignation. Despite his handcuffs, he lurched to his feet, placing himself between his former gang members and Lily. "Don't you dare touch her," he warned, his voice regaining some of its former commanding presence. "She's Michael Morgan's daughter, my old squad mate, Kuletone." Confusion flickered across Marco's face, but only momentarily before hardening back into rage. "I don't give a damn whose kid she is. That dog took a chunk out of you, and now we're going to—" The sharp retort of Nathan's warning shot cut through Marco's threats, the bullet embedding itself harmlessly in the ceiling. "Next one won't miss," Nathan stated flatly. "On the ground, hands behind your heads. Now." For a heartbeat, it seemed the confrontation might end there. Marco and his companions slowly lowering their makeshift weapons, the security personnel moving in to take control. But then the 4th gang member, who had slipped unnoticed through a patient room during the commotion, emerged suddenly from a side door directly behind Eleanor's wheelchair. "Nobody move!" he shouted, pressing a scalpel against Eleanor's throat, his other hand gripping the back of her wheelchair. "Anybody tries anything and the old lady gets it." The sudden threat froze everyone in place. Lily's terrified cry echoed down the corridor as Atlas growled deep in his chest. Combat training warring with the need to protect both his primary charge and the beloved older woman who had trained him. "Let her go, Rick." Victor commanded, his voice tight with urgency. "She's dying anyway. You've got nothing to gain here." "Shut up, traitor," Rick spat, pressing the scalpel closer to Eleanor's papery skin. A small bead of blood appeared beneath the blade's edge. "I want safe passage out of here. Me and the boys are taking the wheelchair lady as insurance." Eleanor remained eerily calm, her eyes finding Lily's across the space between them. "It's all right, sweetheart," she said softly, her voice steady despite the blade at her throat. "Remember what I told you, Atlas will protect you." The hospital's monitoring equipment continued to beep steadily from Eleanor's room, the ordinary rhythm a stark counterpoint to the life-and-death drama unfolding in the corridor. Dr. Palmer stood motionless, medical training and human compassion warring on his face as he watched blood trickle down his patient's neck. "Nobody needs to die today," Nathan said evenly, his weapon still raised, but his attention now split between multiple threats. "There are children on this floor, innocent patients. Think about what you're doing." Rick's eyes darted nervously between Nathan's gun and the elevator doors. "I ain't going to prison," he insisted, voice rising with desperation. "Not for Victor's obsession, not for any of this." Victor strained against his handcuffs, stepping closer, despite the security officer attempting to restrain him. "Eleanor had nothing to do with any of it. Rick, this was all me. My mistake. My crusade. You want to hurt someone, hurt me." The offer hung in the air, a genuine sacrifice from a man who minutes before had been consumed by thoughts of revenge. Something in Victor's voice, perhaps the authentic remorse or the echo of the honorable soldier he had once been, seemed to reach Rick, whose grip on the scalpel faltered slightly. It was the opening Atlas had been waiting for. With a burst of speed that belied his compact frame, the service dog launched forward, his trajectory precisely calculated to knock Rick's arm away from Eleanor's throat without injuring the frail woman. His jaws clamped around Rick's wrist, the pressure controlled but agonizing, forcing him to drop the scalpel with a howl of pain. Chaos erupted. Nathan and the security officers moved to subdue Marco, and the other gang members. Dr. Palmer rushed to Eleanor's side, assessing the shallow cut on her neck. Lily ran forward, desperate to reach her grandmother, despite the danger. And then amid the shouting and struggle, one of the monitoring alarms from Eleanor's room changed tone from the steady beep of normal function to the sustained warning of critical failure. Dr. Palmer's head snapped up, professional instinct overriding everything else. "Her heart monitor," he said sharply, already moving toward the room. "She's coding!" The fighting ceased abruptly, all eyes turning toward Eleanor. The elderly woman sat motionless in her wheelchair, eyes closed, head tilted slightly as if listening to distant music. The thin trickle of blood on her neck had already stopped the small wound, insignificant compared to the internal battle her body was losing. "Grandma!" Lily's voice was small, frightened as she reached her grandmother's side. "Grandma, wake up!" Atlas whined softly, releasing Rick's thoroughly subdued form to pad back to Eleanor, nudging the elderly woman's limp hand with his nose. The dog's behavior conveyed what the adults were reluctant to voice. Something fundamental had changed. Dr. Palmer gently guided the wheelchair back into Eleanor's room, where the cardiac alarm continued its ominous tone. Medical staff rushed in, pushing a crash cart, their urgent professionalism, a stark contrast to the violence that had preceded their arrival. Lily tried to follow, but Nathan held her back gently, Atlas pressing against her legs for support. "Let them work, Lily," Nathan murmured, his voice kind but firm. "They'll do everything they can." Victor watched from the doorway, his handcuffed hands hanging uselessly at his sides, his face a study in dawning horror at what his 25-year vendetta had ultimately wrought. "This is my fault," he whispered, the words barely audible. "All of it. My fault." Minutes stretched into an eternity as the medical team worked, their voices calm but urgent. Behind the partially closed door, Lily stood frozen in the corridor, her casted arm clutched against her chest, her other hand buried in Atlas's fur. The dog remained steadfast beside her, amber eyes fixed on the hospital room door, as if willing his beloved trainer to walk through it. When Dr. Palmer finally emerged, his face told the story before he spoke. He knelt before Lily, his eyes gentle but direct. "I'm so sorry, Lily. Your grandmother's heart couldn't take the strain. We did everything we could, but she's gone." The words seemed to hang in the air, impossible to absorb. Lily stood motionless, her young mind struggling to process the finality of death. Then with a heart-wrenching sob, she pushed past Dr. Palmer and ran into the room, Atlas at her heels. Eleanor lay peacefully on the hospital bed, medical equipment, now silent, her face serene, as if she had simply decided it was time to rest. The tubes and wires had been removed, leaving only the frail woman who had been the center of Lily's world since her parents' death. "Grandma," Lily whispered, climbing awkwardly onto the bed with her one good arm. "I didn't get to give you your present." She laid her head on Eleanor's chest where no heartbeat answered. "I didn't get to say goodbye." Atlas jumped up beside them, settling protectively next to Lily, his warm body providing comfort where human words would fail. In the doorway, Victor Blackwood watched, handcuffs forgotten, as the consequences of his life's misguided mission played out in the grief of a 10-year-old girl. And for the first time in 25 years, he wept without restraint, mourning not only Eleanor's death, but the decades of life his obsession had cost them all. The hospital chapel stood empty, save for Lily, Atlas, and a kind-faced nurse who had volunteered to sit with them while the necessary arrangements for Eleanor were completed. Lily sat in stunned silence, her small frame hunched forward on the polished wooden pew, the unopened backpack clutched against her chest. Atlas maintained his vigilant position at the child's feet, occasionally lifting his head to lick away tears that fell unheeded onto Lily's cheeks. "Lily," the nurse's gentle voice broke the silence, "there's someone here from your grandmother's medical team. She has something for you." A young woman in a white coat entered the chapel carrying a sealed envelope. Her steps were hesitant, her expression compassionate as she approached the grieving child. "Hello, Lily. I'm Dr. Bennett, one of your grandmother's oncology specialists," she explained, taking a seat at a respectful distance. "Your grandmother asked me to give you this if she wasn't able to tell you herself." She held out the envelope, which bore Lily's name in Eleanor's distinctive handwriting. Lily stared at the envelope, making no move to take it. "Grandma knew she was going to die today?" Her voice was small, hollow with shock. Dr. Bennett nodded gently. Eleanor understood her condition very well. The cancer had spread throughout her body. We'd explained that she might have weeks, but Eleanor seemed to know it would be sooner. She placed the envelope on the pew between them. "She wrote this 3 days ago and made me promise to deliver it personally." With trembling fingers, Lily finally reached for the envelope. Atlas shifted position, resting his chin on the pew beside Lily, amber eyes watching attentively as if understanding the gravity of the moment. The nurse and doctor exchanged glances, silently agreeing to give the child space. "We'll be just outside if you need us," Dr. Bennett said softly, rising to her feet. "Take all the time you need." Left alone with Atlas, Lily broke the seal on the envelope. Inside was a folded letter and a small key attached to a worn leather tag. She unfolded the pages, her grandmother's familiar handwriting, bringing fresh tears to her eyes. "My dearest Lily," she began reading aloud to Atlas, finding comfort in voicing the words. "If you're reading this, it means I've gone to join your parents. I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer, but there are things you need to know that I should have told you sooner." As Lily read, Eleanor's final message revealed the truth she had protected for years. The letter explained that Eleanor's cancer diagnosis hadn't been recent. She had been battling the disease secretly for over 2 years, undergoing treatments while Lily was in school. The doctors had given her 6 months to live nearly a year ago, but Eleanor had fought to remain for Lily's sake, knowing the child had already lost too much. The key enclosed belongs to a safety deposit box at Harborview National Bank. Lily read fingers tracing the worn leather tag. "It contains legal documents naming your guardian should anything happen to me. I always hoped Victor would find his way back to the man he once was, the brother. Your father chose the soldier I was proud to train. Life rarely gives us perfect endings, Lily, but sometimes it offers second chances to those brave enough to take them." Lily looked up from the letter, confusion evident in her tear-stained face. Atlas whined softly, pressing closer, as if offering strength for what was to come. The letter continued, revealing the full truth of Eleanor's military career. She hadn't been merely a dog trainer, but the architect of an elite K-9 program that paired specially trained service dogs with vulnerable individuals, initially wounded soldiers, then later expanded to include civilians with special needs. Atlas represented the pinnacle of this program, specifically matched with Lily after her parents' deaths and her subsequent development of stress-induced seizures. Atlas was trained not only to alert to your medical needs, but to recognize both Victor Blackwood and Nathan Cooper as safe persons. Eleanor's letter explained, "I knew someday Victor might find us driven by his misguided quest. I trained Atlas to protect you from danger while recognizing those who, despite their mistakes, might one day become your protectors." Lily's hands trembled as she turned to the final page. Atlas shifted position, alerting to the child's increasing distress with quiet vigilance. "My greatest regret is not telling you the full truth about your connection to Victor Blackwood." Eleanor had written, "He and your father served together in special forces, becoming as close as brothers. After your parents died, Victor was listed in their will as your guardian should anything happen to me. But by then, Victor had disappeared into his obsession with finding James Westfield, the man he wrongly believed responsible for his brother's death." Lily lowered the letter, struggling to process this revelation. "Victor was supposed to be my guardian," she whispered to Atlas, "the man who hurt me." As if summoned by her words, a knock sounded at the chapel door. Nathan Cooper entered, his leather jacket replaced by a police detective's blazer, his expression solemn but kind. "Lily, there's someone who'd like to speak with you if you're willing," Nathan said carefully. "You don't have to if you don't want to. It's entirely your choice." Behind him stood Victor Blackwood, now without handcuffs but flanked by a uniformed officer. The massive biker looked diminished somehow, his earlier ferocity replaced by profound grief and regret. The bandage on his arm where Atlas had bitten him was spotted with fresh blood, but he seemed oblivious to the pain. "I understand if you don't want to see me," Victor said, his voice rough with emotion. "What I did to you is unforgivable. I needed to tell you how sorry I am for everything." Lily looked from Victor to the letter in her hands, then to Atlas. The service dog's reaction was telling. Instead of the protective posture he had assumed earlier, Atlas's tail gave a tentative wag, recognizing something in Victor that transcended his recent actions. "Grandma's letter says you were supposed to be my guardian." Lily said, the directness of childhood cutting through adult prevarication, "that you and my dad were like brothers." Victor's composure broke at the mention of Michael Morgan. "Your dad saved my life twice in combat," he said, tears flowing freely down his weathered face. "He made me promise that if anything happened to him, I'd look out for his family. Instead, I abandoned that promise to chase ghosts, and today I hurt the very person I swore to protect." Nathan placed a steadying hand on Victor's shoulder. "There's something else you should know, Lily," he added gently. "The district attorney has agreed not to press charges against Victor for your injury conditional on psychological evaluation and treatment. Your grandmother apparently filed paperwork years ago that would give Victor shared guardianship of you in the event of her death pending court approval." Lily's eyes widened, looking from Nathan to Victor in disbelief. "Grandma wanted him to take care of me even after everything?" Eleanor Morgan saw potential for redemption in everyone. Nathan explained softly, "Even those who'd lost their way, she never gave up on Victor, even when he gave up on himself." Victor knelt slowly to Lily's level, careful to maintain a respectful distance. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, Lily, and I certainly don't deserve to be your guardian. But I want you to know that I'm going to spend whatever time I have left trying to become the man your father and grandmother believed I could be." Atlas, acting on training so deeply ingrained it seemed like intuition, rose from his position and approached Victor. The dog sniffed his outstretched hand carefully, then pressed his head against it, a gesture of recognition and conditional acceptance that caused Victor to break down completely. "He remembers me," he whispered through his tears, "from before when Eleanor first trained him." Lily watched this interaction with growing understanding. The letter in her hands, her grandmother's final message, had changed everything, transforming the terrifying biker who had broken her arm into a damaged but grieving man who had once been family. The transition was too complex for her young mind to fully process, but some instinctive wisdom recognized the profound shift occurring before her. The letter says, "Grandma put something else in the safety deposit box," Lily said, finally holding up the small key. "Legal papers and something about my parents. Would you go with me to see what it is? You knew them too." The simple invitation, neither forgiveness nor acceptance, but an acknowledgement of shared connection, hung in the air between them. Victor looked up, hope and disbelief warring in his expression. "I would be honored," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "If you're sure." Atlas moved between them, creating a bridge of fur and unconditional loyalty. The service dog's training had prepared him for many scenarios, but this healing moment between the child he was bound to protect and the man who had once been designated as that child's guardian transcended training. It fulfilled Eleanor's final unspoken wish that the broken pieces of her family might someday find a way to become whole again. As Lily stood still, clutching her grandmother's letter, she felt something shift within her heart. Not forgiveness exactly, but the first tentative steps toward understanding. Atlas pressed against her leg supportively, while Victor remained kneeling, waiting for permission to enter the new reality Eleanor's revelations had created. "Grandma always said that family isn't just blood," Lily said, echoing words Eleanor had repeated throughout her childhood. "It's who stands beside you when the world falls apart." The profound wisdom from such a young source left the adults momentarily speechless. In that suspended moment, Eleanor's presence seemed to fill the chapel, not as a ghost, but as the living legacy of compassion and second chances she had embodied throughout her remarkable life. 1 month after Eleanor Morgan's funeral, her weathered Victorian house on the bluff showed signs of revival. Fresh paint brightened the faded trim. The garden beds had been weeded and prepped for winter, and a newly installed wheelchair ramp led to the front porch where Eleanor had once sat watching ships enter the harbor. Inside, framed photographs that had been carefully packed away were finding new places on walls and shelves, visual touchstones connecting past to present in a home slowly healing from grief. In the sunlit kitchen, Lily sat at the table, her blue cast now decorated with colorful signatures from classmates and neighbors. Her small face had regained some of its former animation as she carefully colored a drawing for her therapist. Atlas dozed contentedly at her feet, the rhythmic rise and fall of his chest, a comforting constant in a world of change. The service dog's routine remained largely unchanged, though he had adapted seamlessly to the household's new dynamics, his training ensuring continued support for Lily while accommodating additional human presences. His tactical vest hung on a special hook by the door, ready for service, but temporarily at rest in the safety of home. Victor Blackwood entered from the back door, arms laden with grocery bags, his appearance notably transformed from the intimidating biker who had terrorized the park 1 month earlier. His beard was neatly trimmed, the leather jacket replaced by a flannel shirt, though his imposing size remained unchanged. Most striking was the alteration in his eyes, the cold, vengeful hardness replaced by watchful care, tinged with lingering remorse. The shadows beneath him spoke of sleepless nights and hard-earned insights. "Miss Bennett called," Victor announced, setting the groceries on the counter. "She'll be by tomorrow to check on your progress with the homeschooling materials." He glanced at Lily's drawing. "That for Dr. Matthews." Lily nodded, adding final touches to what appeared to be a family portrait. "It's all of us. See, that's Atlas, and me and Detective Cooper when he visits." She held up the drawing, revealing simplistic but recognizable figures, including a German shepherd with an impressively detailed service vest. Victor studied the image in motion, briefly tightening his features before he masked it. "It's really good, kiddo. She'll like that." He turned away under the pretense of unpacking groceries, using the moment to compose himself. These small gestures of inclusion from Lily still caught him off guard, piercing the armor of guilt he carried like a second skin. The legal process establishing Victor's guardianship remained ongoing, complicated by his criminal record and the circumstances of Lily's injury. For now, he occupied a legally ambiguous position as Lily's provisional caretaker under close supervision from social services and with Nathan Cooper's frequent oversight. The arrangement was temporary but functional, allowing Lily to remain in her grandmother's home instead of entering foster care, while courts deliberated on Eleanor's unorthodox final wishes. The front door opened, announcing Nathan's arrival for his daily check-in. The detective had become a fixture in their unusual household. His dual role as law enforcement officer and Eleanor's former student, making him the perfect intermediary between Victor's provisional guardianship and the legal system's concerns. Mail call. Nathan announced, placing several envelopes on the table before kneeling to greet Atlas, who had roused himself at his entrance. "How's that arm feeling today, Lily?" "Itchy." Lily replied honestly. "Dr. Palmer says maybe 2 more weeks before the cast comes off." She sorted through the mail with her good hand, pausing at an official-looking envelope addressed to Victor Blackwood. "This one's for you, it looks important." Victor accepted the envelope with visible trepidation. Every official communication carried the potential to disrupt their fragile arrangement, to separate him from the child he had wronged and was now committed to protecting. He opened it, carefully scanning the contents with an expression that gradually shifted from concern to cautious relief. "It's from the VA," he explained, looking up at Nathan. "They've approved my application for the Veterans Rehabilitation Program, PTSD treatment counseling, job placement assistance." He shook his head in disbelief. "I didn't think they'd consider me given my record." "Eleanor had more influence than you realized," Nathan replied. "She made calls before she passed. This approval was her doing." The revelation momentarily overwhelmed Victor. Another unexpected gesture from the woman whose forgiveness he had never had the chance to properly earn. Lily, sensing his emotion with a child's intuitive perception, slid off her chair and moved to stand beside him, her small hand resting tentatively on his arm. "Grandma was good at fixing broken things," she said simply. "She always said everyone deserves a second chance to be their best self." Victor placed his massive hand gently over Lily's. The contrast between his weathered skin and her unblemished palm, a visual reminder of the unlikely bond forming between them. "Your grandma was the wisest person I ever knew," he agreed quietly. "I'm just sorry it took me so long to remember that." Nathan observed this interaction with satisfaction, noting the progress in their relationship since the tumultuous hospital confrontation. His official reports to social services had highlighted these positive developments, countering the understandable reservations about placing a child with the very man who had injured her. What made the arrangement viable was the remarkable resilience of children, Eleanor's meticulous legal preparations, and perhaps most significantly, Atlas's unequivocal acceptance of Victor the service dog's behavior, providing a barometer of safety that even skeptical authorities respected. The Iron Serpent's dissolution is nearly complete. Nathan reported transitioning to updates Victor had requested. Most members accepted plea deals in exchange for community service. Marco and Rick are still facing more serious charges, but even their cooperating. "Your testimony made the difference." "The one you are," Victor nodded, accepting this news with complicated emotions. His willingness to testify against his former gang had severed his final ties to his decades-long crusade, closing a chapter written in misplaced vengeance and wasted years. "And the military records?" Victor asked. "Any progress on clearing Daniel's name?" "The official review is underway," Nathan confirmed. "With the evidence from Eleanor's safety deposit box and your supporting testimony, the Pentagon has assigned a special investigator. It won't be quick, but Congressman Bailey seems confident about the outcome." Iran 1. The contents of Eleanor's safety deposit box had proved more valuable than any of them anticipated, containing not only the legal documents naming Victor as Lily's conditional guardian, but also sealed military files Eleanor had secretly preserved. These documents provided compelling evidence of the conspiracy that had framed Daniel Blackwood and forced James Westfield into witness protection, potentially clearing both men's names decades after their deaths. "I should visit Daniel soon," Victor said quietly. It's been too long since I went to the cemetery. I have a lot to tell him about what really happened. Lily looked up hopefully. Can I come too? I'd like to bring flowers for my parents while we're there. Victor and Nathan exchanged glances, another small step in their evolving relationship. Lily's request to accompany Victor to his brother's grave represented significant progress, both in her healing and in her developing trust of him. Of course you can, kiddo, Victor answered, ruffling her hair gently. Maybe next weekend, when the weather's nice, we'll bring flowers for everyone. Your parents, your grandma, and Daniel. Later that evening, after Lily had gone to bed with Atlas curled protectively at her feet, Victor and Nathan sat on the front porch sharing coffee and conversation in the cool autumn air. The transformation of Eleanor's home continued around them. Victor's careful carpentry repairs to the porch railing, Nathan's contribution of security upgrades, and the community's rallying support through casseroles and lawn maintenance for the unusual household forming in their midst. I submitted my final undercover report today, Nathan said, breaking a comfortable silence. Officially concluding the Iron Serpent's investigation. Victor nodded, processing the implications. So you're back to regular detective work. With a promotion, Nathan confirmed, and a request to consult on the K-9 service program Eleanor developed. Turns out there's growing interest in expanding it nationally. She'd be proud of that, Victor said with genuine warmth. That program was her life's work. Well, that and raising Lily. Both men glanced toward the house, where light glowed softly through Lily's bedroom window. The responsibility they shared for her future hung unspoken between them, a commitment neither had anticipated but both now embraced. The hearings next week, Nathan reminded him, Judge Watkins will review your guardian application. Lily's testimony will carry significant weight. Victor's expression tightened with familiar anxiety. And I still don't know if it's right. Me raising Michael's daughter after what I did, sometimes I think she'd be better off with a normal family. Without all this baggage. Eleanor didn't think so, Nathan countered evenly. She had 25 years to change those legal documents, but she never did. She believed in second chances right up to the end. The evening breeze carried the scent of Eleanor's roses, still blooming against the odds as autumn deepened toward winter. Victor breathed deeply, finding unexpected comfort in the familiar fragrance and all it represented. Second chances, he repeated softly. Eleanor got that part right. But what she never said was how much work they take, how much they cost. He looked toward the star-lit sky as if seeking affirmation from beyond. I just hope I'm equal to it. Inside the house, Atlas stirred briefly beside the sleeping Lily, alert to sounds on the porch before settling back with a contented sigh. The service dog's mission continued uninterrupted, protecting the child while adapting to the new constellation of guardians Eleanor had assembled before her departure. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, therapy appointments, legal consultations, the ongoing negotiations of grief and healing. But for tonight at least, all was peaceful in the house on the bluff where a broken family was finding its way, piece by unexpected piece toward wholeness again. Life's journey rarely follows the path we expect. As we age, we carry the weight of our choices, some that brought joy, others that led to regret. Lily and Victor's story reminds us that it's never too late for redemption. Eleanor Morgan understood something profound. Our mistakes don't define us. Our willingness to make amends does. Like Victor, many of us have spent years chasing the wrong things, nurturing grievances that poisoned our potential. We've missed opportunities to be there for those who needed us. Yet Eleanor's wisdom teaches us that forgiveness isn't just something we receive, it's a gift we give ourselves and others. And the most valuable legacy isn't material possessions, but the relationships we nurture and the second chances we offer. Even in her final moments, Eleanor created a path for healing, showing that true strength comes not from holding on to the past, but from having the courage to embrace a different future. Your story isn't finished. Like Victor, you can still become the person someone once believed you could be.